I have a direct and specific message to the gun-grabbing criminals that run this new world order. Your activity, your seizing on every crisis, like tragedy vultures, has become obvious to everyone. And now we've seen this poor Congresswoman, Gabrielle Giffords, shot, but thank God she's alive and starting to recover. This poor federal judge, Rolls, this little girl, this 9-year-old named Green, being killed. And her father and mother come out and say, don't politicize this. Don't use this to take more of our freedoms.
No, she wouldn't want things to change. Would not want restrictions. After 9/11, travel became a nightmare. Don't need any more restrictions on our society, I think.
The father talked about how he travels a lot and how hellish the airports are. And he said, don't take our freedoms. Don't go after our Second Amendment. And now AOL columnists and others have viciously attacked the parents, saying they don't deserve to have their little girl. I can't believe I'm reading stuff like this. The truth is, the Democrats predominantly and the environmental movement have been financing movies and TV shows in England and the U.S. that show 9-year-olds in a school being fictitiously murdered because they don't sign on to their carbon taxes. The truth is, we're taught how worthless humanity is and how bad humanity is for the earth every day. The truth is, with this deranged shooter, this guy was shooting videos of the Grim Reaper burning the American flag with devilish music in the background. A day before it came out that he was into the occult, I said, this is one of these vampire-obsessed, nihilistic, people that's into Satanism. And now his friends are saying he was nihilistic. He was into death. He had this shrine behind his house with a skull and black magic voodoo offerings of oranges. That's what voodoo is, the black magic variety of it, or the black magic variety of Santeria. This guy loved Karl Marx. This guy loved anything dark and destructive. He thought he was a woman. He obviously had multiple personalities. And that's why we need our Second Amendment, to defend ourselves from people like him. But now we see this full frontal assault by Hillary and Bill Clinton, by all these other Congress people, blaming talk radio, blaming the alternative media, calling for censorship on the web, calling for people to be arrested who put out any symbols or say anything that could influence someone else to do violence. That's a full frontal attack on the First Amendment. Now, the system is really upset and scared by this because a member of the power structure, in fact, 2 of them, a congressperson was shot and seriously wounded in the head, and a federal judge was murdered. And I would add that Judge Rolls, of course, was the judge who was instrumental in defeating the Brady bill, the 5-day waiting period, with Sheriff Richard Mack, who we've now interviewed on the subject, and was a staunch supporter of the Second Amendment. So was this poor Congresswoman. She was also for controlling the border. And the media is doing everything it can, the dinosaur media, to spin this and claim that this is what libertarians and conservatives have caused. Democracy Now! Has now come out and said that the Rand Paul, Alex Jones, that we're to blame for all of this.
The idea that the Federal Reserve was created as part of a vast conspiracy is not just embedded in the minds of people who are disturbed, but it's widely shared on, Alex Jones' website and by Ron Paul, elected Representative Ron Paul. So what we have here is a right-wing milieu.
This is outrageous, my friends. This is an attack on free speech, not just the right to keep and bear arms. And I want to make this clear. I don't want a violent confrontation with this out-of-control government. But both parties are predominantly controlled by offshore banks. Tens of trillions of dollars have been stolen from our Treasury. Henry Paulson did threaten martial law to Congress through the executive if they didn't give him unlimited trillions. The Obama people have continued what Bush was up to. The dollar is being devalued. We are going into a private corporate world government. And the media is saying that if you talk about that, you support the cold-blooded shooting of that 9-year-old girl, the federal judge, and the Congresswoman Gilfords. It's just asinine. The truth is the mainstream media has been discredited. The truth is there is a global private corporate empire that's used the United States as its muscle and as its credit card. And the truth is the American people and the people of the world are waking up and coming together politically, as Congresswoman Gilfords had said on Fox just the day before she was shot in the head by this Grim Reaper, nihilistic lunatic. And I had predicted, just looking at his garb and some of his other statements, that he'd be some type of occultic devil worshiper. That's very popular with our spoiled, rotten youth today, who've got a bunch of, parents who did everything for them, including wiping their hind ends when they were 10 years old. I guess it was Victor Hugo that said, adversity makes men and prosperity makes monsters. We're entering a very decadent phase, and that's all the more reason for the American people to be armed against criminals and against tyrants. I am not calling for offensive actions against government. That is the last thing we need. But was it right for the Germans in Operation Valkyrie, in their military, to stand up against Adolf Hitler? Our government today would tell you no. Was it right in 1989 for the Romanians to stand up against Ceausescu, who had tortured tens of thousands of people to death and imprisoned in slave camps hundreds of thousands? Would it have been right to stand up against Stalin or Lenin or Mao Zedong or Julius Caesar? Was it right for black slaves to occasionally stand up when they were being beaten and beat their slave masters right back? Our media, our government would say no. But I go back to Romania and Ceausescu and the video we're showing on screen right now. They were having a rally. The people were starving. There was incredible tyranny. And he got up there at the rally and lectured them, and the police began to beat up some of the people in the hundreds of thousands in the crowd. And Ceausescu said that that was a good thing, and so the people rioted. They took over the Capitol, and they took control of Ceausescu and his wife. They had a trial, and then he was executed. Now, was it right to do that? Our government, our media would say no matter what the state does, you need to shut up and put up with it. You need to put up with people every week being tasered to death. You need to put up with cops shooting innocent people in the back and getting away with it. You need to put up with foreign banks stealing trillions of dollars. You need to put up with the ATF burning down Waco and those little kids inside and shooting them as they tried to run out. You need to put up with the feds staging Operation Gulf of Tonkin to get us into the Vietnam War. You need to put up with bipartisan continuity of agenda, Bush pushing torture and secret arrest, and now Obama doing it and appointing all these mob bosses. You need to sit down and put up with the mafia machine passing government health care written by the insurance companies to force you to buy overpriced care, and put up with the death panels now being announced by Bill Gates and others. You're supposed to put up with all of that while they give over 500 waivers to Obama's friends so their companies don't have to get insurance, but you do. Walmart won't have to get it. McDonald's won't have to get it, but your little company will. And the globalists, they don't want to have a peaceful restoration through the 10th Amendment, through the states, through Congress, of our Constitution, because then they know there will be trials of the Bernie Madoff, Ken Lay type criminals that run this modern system. They want to provocateur things like the Hatari militia that turned out to be staged, and these Muslim groups that turn out to be staged over and over and over again. Even mainstream news and Geraldo Rivera now admit that. They want to preemptively have a shootout in this country. This is a dictatorship of corporate criminals manipulating and controlling government. And they're not afraid of Congress people being gunned down or presidents being gunned down because they know they're puppets, whether it's George W. Bush or Barack Hussein Obama. They are afraid of you taking control of your government and your grand juries and bringing them to justice like a house of cards. As more and more of them fall and get indicted, and that's starting to happen, as more and more of the mortgages are discovered to be fraudulent, as courts are now ruling, their system is imploding. A people counter coup can work, but not when you don't have a single dictatorship. We've got a corrupt system. The main problem is looking at us in the mirror that we allowed it to go this far. It's been said many times that if the millions of gun owners, even if 1% of the 100 million gun owners stood up and started fighting the government, that we would defeat these criminals overnight. That's over 1 million combatants who are lone wolf, asymmetrical, impossible to defeat. There's no way an armed population can be brought into tyranny unless it's done through incremental corruption. And that's why the system wants to have an armed confrontation now, early on, before everybody's awoken, while they still have a chance to win it. We need to peacefully take our republic back and understand that shooting and killing people is not the way to go. We're dealing with an entirely corrupt system that is going to have to be taken back house by house, city by city, county by county, state by state, nation by nation. And it's that eternal struggle against good and evil. But to the opportunistic sickos who are using these deaths and hyping these deaths as a pretext to attack the very heart of the First Amendment, they're openly calling for restrictions on free speech now, and to openly attack being able to own more than 10 rounds of ammo. I mean, just amazing draconian tyrannies being announced. This is only serving as a wake-up call. This isn't 15 years ago where the feds could blow up Oklahoma City and use it, you know, to get everybody to feel sorry for them and to demonize liberty. This isn't 17 years ago when you guys staged the situation at Waco where you could, quote, demonize a cult. We're not playing in the same ball game. And you guys are still using the same old tricks. You think we're so dumb, you openly talk about staging stuff like we don't see it. People are waking up and are wise to what you're doing, and you need to get on the right side of history. And for the average, you know, middle-of-the-road liberal, this is all meant to get conservatives and liberals fighting with each other, and so that the left-right paradigm continues on.
You look at the threat on the borders with national security, and you look at what's happening with the debt and the deficit. These are all areas that I've always focused on since I've been in Congress. Democrats and Republicans should work together on these issues. Well,
the system knows that we're awakening and coming together. And they're very scared of that. So if they can get liberals and conservatives blaming each other for who's to blame for this obvious paranoid schizophrenic, they've won. We need to come together and decry senseless acts of violence, but stand for the Bill of Rights and Constitution that so many have fought for. And remember that you have a better chance of being struck by lightning than being killed by a mass shooter. You have a better chance of being killed by a bee sting than being killed by a terrorist. And that this is the media playing this up and hyping it and trying to use this little girl as a martyr against the First and Second Amendment, which are literally holy components of our basic canon that is the Bill of Rights. I hope you'll spread this video to everyone you know. We must defend the Republic from enemies foreign and domestic. We must defend them in the info war because the pen is mightier than the sword. Visit Infowars.com and PrisonPlanet.com. When you're on the site, you can also tune in 24 hours a day to my daily radio broadcast. There's also a free iPhone app to listen to the syndicated radio show when and where you want. Understand this, and may the message be clear to you. You will fail in your quest to disarm us. You will fail in your quest to defeat the First Amendment and free speech. Everyone is going to redouble their efforts. And as you try to create internet IDs, as you try to tax the web, as you try to restrict free speech, as you turn loose the giant cybersecurity, domestic spy corps to go out and stir up trouble and infiltrate groups and provocateur, you're only revealing to everyone what you really are.